So I thought I would make a video since I haven't made any videos in the last couple of months, and this is one of my most recent acquisitions. It is a Hoover Windtunnel 7500 Turbopower canister. It was made in 2002, so it's one of the later model Turbopower wind tunnel canisters. These came out around 97, and they were making them right up to about 05, 06. So this is, I guess, somewhere in the middle, but kind of towards the later run. Being a turbo power, it is pretty much a top-of-the-line Hoover canister you could buy at the time. So it's got the wind tunnel power nozzle, which only came with the wind tunnel version of this canister. It also has a variable speed motor with the slider switch on the handle with power controls, as well as the turbo tool on the base of the canister that stores with the other attachments. Now this design, even though this vacuum was made in 2002, this design goes back to the early 90s. I would say probably around 1990 or 1991. It was about that time that they discontinued the Dimension 1000, which I actually have over there, as Hoover's top-of-the-line canister, and they replaced that, from what I understand, with the Spectrum, and that was their top-of-the-line model. And the Power Max and Runabout were basically lower-end models of the same basic canister design with different features, different power heads, and whatnot. Hoover wanted to update the design in the late 90s, and that's when they came out with the wind tunnel canister, which basically in canister form was for the most part the same vacuum, but they redesigned the power nozzle to have the wind tunnel suction channel like the uprights do, as the uprights came out around the same time as this. I got this at Savers, which is a thrift store. It's not as big of a chain as Goodwill, but there are some locations across the United States. In some regions, they're called Value Village. And after a coupon, I paid about $17 or $18 for this, which isn't too bad. It does have all of its attachments, as you can see, but this turbo tool doesn't like to stay in place because there's a tab in here that's broken. Common issue with these is that the tabs break. The canister otherwise is in really good shape. I washed both the pre and post motor filters. You can see I made a HEPA bag to fit in here because HEPA bags for these machines are not cheap. Depending on whether or not I keep this machine, I might just give in and buy the bags, just because the HEPA bags come with a rubber gasket on them, which is really important for filtration. The power head has a little more wear to it, so the previous owner of the machine, they jerry-rigged a screw in there to hold the wheel because I guess the wheel housing is worn. The wheel housing is actually worn on the other side too, but not as bad as the other side. There is stress in the cord right here going into the power nozzle. There's no short, it's just the outer layer of the cord that's basically been stripped from stress on that portion of the cord. Very common on these. The previous wind tunnel canister I had the exact same issue. I did replace the belt and light bulb on the power head. I probably will just end up replacing the base of the power head at some point, just because I just don't, I mean, to me that's unsightly, and I don't want to have something in my collection that has something like that that's gonna stick out. But the canister does run well. It has a little bit of bearing noise on wind down. You can hear it, and I think that's not only due to age, but due to the fact that these did let a little bit of dust go through the motor. This was a time where people were just starting to care about filtration on vacuums. And even though this was advertised to be good for allergies, it really wasn't. It was okay if you used the higher filtering multi-layer bags, but most people bought the cheap bags, and that's why they leaked dust everywhere. And they were using cheap aftermarket 1-layer bags in this machine beforehand because that's what was in the vacuum when I got it, unfortunately. Like I said, I might give in and get the HEPA bags at some point just because they're so much better than what I jerry-rigged to fit in that machine. And it is, for the most part, an old school vacuum. It's got a big, heavy, wire reinforced hose and a pigtail cord on both ends, which is good for reliability, but not so good for convenience and ease of use. Why I like this machine, I've always liked the way they look. They also clean extremely well, as Hoover canisters pretty much always have. And I like that it's got the variable speed motor, so I can run it real quiet. And when I'm vacuuming late at night, which I often do because I work nights, I don't really have to worry too much about bothering the people around me because the vacuum is pretty quiet when it's on low speed, at least when it comes to the canister portion. And I don't have a lot of carpet, so I don't really use power heads that much anyway in my apartment. I've never liked Hoover canisters very much. I just never thought Hoover put as much thought into their canisters as they did with their uprights. I've always thought they were generally heavy, clunky, and not user-friendly. But I would say for a canister, this was a good effort on Hoover's part. I think they did a really good job trying to fix some of the issues that earlier Hoover canisters have. And overall, I think it is a very pleasant machine. So we'll give it a quick run. I can imagine many of you already know what a Hoover Windtunnel canister sounds like, but I will run it. As far as I know, they pretty much use the same motors in all of these canisters, whether or not it was a Windtunnel Power Max, Runabout, Spectrum, or whatever. They all pretty much had the same canister unit. It was mainly the power head that was different, as well as a few other step-up features. And like the Dimension 1000, this does have a standby switch. So when you press this power button and you see that light come on right there, that doesn't actually turn the vacuum on. You actually turn the vacuum on here. So we'll just give it a quick run. I won't run it very long because it's late, but just so you can hear what it sounds like. I'll start first on low speed and then I'll rev it up to high. Another interesting thing to note about this vacuum and most Hoover canisters is that as long as all the wires are plugged in, the headlight comes on. So it's interesting, there's actually power going into it before you actually turn the switch to actually use the power nozzle. That's always something that's kind of almost been, I think, like unique to Hoover canisters. So I'll turn that standby off, and yeah, that's the Hoover Windtunnel canister. Like I said, I think Hoover did a good job trying to make this canister a little more user-friendly and a little easier to use. So yeah, that's pretty much it, and I hope you enjoyed the video.